Howdy, folks. I'm Bouncy Boots, boisterously barreling through braying barnyards.
I'm Amber.
And here are more braying barnyards for us to barrel through. And folks, if you didn't know, apparently Boots is the herdsman or the plowsman. That's according to Wikipedia. And also, Amber is going to tell us about her Reader Beware release at the during tea time. So make sure to stick around for that. And let's get started. Alright folks, and our first letter is titled, Am I a jerk for not being a proper wife? I'm a 25-year-old female, and my husband is a 28-year-old male. And we've been together for almost 6 years. And we have a child together, a 1-year-old female. So let's get this straight. I am not a stay-at-home parent, and neither is my husband. He works in law, and I work in property. I love my job, and one of my biggest concerns when having children was that I wouldn't be able to continue working. Well, after daughter was born, I had 6 months of maternity leave, and then I continued working. I work in an office most of the time, and quite often my daughter is able to come with me. This all happened last night. My husband came home from work. It was around 8 p.m. and I was trying to get our daughter to sleep. However, she's currently got a bad case of chickenpox and is not sleeping well at all. My husband came in and I asked if he could make us some dinner, as my daughter was not going to be sleeping for a little while yet. I didn't have the energy to cook right now anyways. After an hour or so, I came downstairs, tired and hungry, hoping that my husband had made dinner so that I could just go to bed. Well, he hadn't. He was sitting at the table, saying that he was waiting for me to make dinner and that he was getting hungry. I told him that I just spent the last hour and a half looking after our daughter, trying to get her to sleep, and he was doing nothing. He then responded with, Then what's a wife for if she can't cook for you? The house is a mess, dinner is not made. What do you even do around here? In some more colorful terms than that. I didn't have the strength or energy to argue with him, so I just went off to bed. But he is calling me a jerk, and his mother is on his side, sending angry messages to me like, I knew you were never good enough for my son. It's the wife's job to look after the babies in the house. Stop trying to make him do that. So am I the jerk? Editing to add. Before kids, we didn't live together. We got married when my daughter was 9 months old and moved in together about a month or two before I got pregnant. I used to enjoy cooking, so that was never a big issue, and my apartment was always a mess before and after he moved in. Alright folks, what do you think?
Not the jerk, and I think you need a new husband, because what's a husband for if he doesn't help you with the sick child you both created?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is one of those situations where if he's not doing anything, then his expectations of this marriage were completely different from what your expectations were. And also, if OP's house was like a mess before they started living together, what did he expect to happen after they lived together?
Well, and the thing is, even if OP was a stay-at-home parent, which she isn't, she works full-time too, it would still be reasonable to ask your partner for help when you're taking care of a sick child. Just
Yeah.
because someone is the primary caretaker for a child does not mean that they are doing all the housework and all the childcare.
Yeah.
OP isn't even a stay-at-home parent, but she is doing all the housework and all the childcare, and her husband is sitting at the table sulking because he can't apparently microwave something or cook a little pasta.
Or use his thumbs and make a phone call.
Yeah.
This is just absurd. I think that this guy just has some very different thoughts about what a marriage involves than OP. It seems like he wants OP just to be a helpmeet type of thing around the house, right? He just wants her to cook, clean, do the child caring while he gets to do what exactly? Work? But the thing is that if you're going to be a sole provider, there's nothing wrong with being a sole provider, right? But that requires you to be the sole provider, right?
Right. OP, you might be better off, like, if this is his attitude and he's unwilling to, like, make any changes, do any counseling, and he's dragging his mother into this too. Like, his mom has no business in your relationship.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so he's not mature enough to be a good spouse or a good parent. You deserve someone who's going to treat you better than this man.
Yeah, and again, like, I agree with you here. The whole bringing his mother into the situation, it happens so often in these stories where you have this mother figure coming in, swooping in and being like, my son, my precious boy, why aren't you being subservient to him all the time?
Yeah, and it's just disgusting. And again, even if someone is a full-time parent, like the partner still has a job in raising the child and helping with the household.
Yeah. But let me know what you folks think. So, anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Making It Clear That My Daughter Isn't a Bully, but clearly her daughter is a thief? On my phone, sorry for all the errors. My daughter is a very good student. She has been on honor roll for all of middle school. She is in the 8th grade and is in the advanced track. She is in some of the regular classes like Spanish, vocab, etc. They do not do advanced tracks for those subjects, and the whole class, 50-ish, gets all the same homework. All of the lockers are in the hall, and this is relevant. It wasn't uncommon for her to help students out with some homework if they asked. Over time, she got sick of doing it and stopped. Ever since Christmas break, she has been struggling. Before, I thought that she was messing up, but no. She would do her homework, and then it would be missing when it was time to turn it in. We bought new organizers, and she would still be missing stuff. I knew that the work was done, but it was missing. 2 weeks ago, she was accused of cheating since someone had almost the exact same essay as her. We also noticed that only her physical stuff in the normal classes would be missing, not her stuff on the computer. Some teachers are old school. She was extremely frustrated and was on track of getting C's in some of her classes. She told the teacher, but no one believed her. So she recorded her locker, and another student was taking her work. We'll call this girl Beth. My daughter was not quiet and turned the proof into her teachers. Basically, the whole grade knew that she was stealing homework. I got a call into the office. They are fixing my daughter's grade, and Beth's mom was trying to get her in trouble for bullying. I told her enough after a while that my daughter isn't a bully, and clearly her daughter is a thief. She called me a jerk, and I refused to allow my daughter to get in trouble. All right, folks, what do you think?
Not the jerk. Letting people know that someone is stealing their homework is not bullying. And in fact, it sounds like the locker protocol is really bad if people can just have their homework stolen so easily and the teachers don't care at all. I read the comments a little bit, and I guess both girls had messy handwriting, so the teachers just were like, no, clearly it's not yours because, you both have messy handwriting, so.
Yeah, well, I also question why the teachers would assume that the one student who was getting A's before, helping out the other students, suddenly can't keep their assignments straight. And then one of the other students that used to do poorly is suddenly now doing well, right?
Yeah, it sounds like these are probably not the most concerned and motivated teachers. And if that's the case, the students need advocates. So I'm really glad OP is standing up for their daughter. And I think it's important that the other students are aware of what this girl did so that they can be on the watch and guard their homework.
Yeah, why would you do this? Just do the work on your own. I think that this was deeper than just her not wanting to do the homework. I think she not only didn't want to do the homework, but she also thought of a way where she could get revenge on this other student who wasn't helping her do her homework anymore.
Right. And I mean, it's nice when people offer to help you, but it is not OP's daughter's obligation. She is not a paid tutor. This is something she was doing out of kindness and generosity, and it sounds like it got to be too much for her.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. Like, the school should have people available to help students with homework. It's not the responsibility of other students.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if OP isn't even getting the full story on that, because it could be that her homework help started turning into giving the answers away to the other students, and that's why she's refusing to do it anymore, because she didn't want to be partake in giving away answers to them. So it could just have been one of those things where they're trying to pressure her into giving up the answers.
Yeah, or it was just more and more and more.
But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Alright, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Punishing My Son for Angrily Saying That We're Not a Real Family During Therapy? My wife and I have our family going to some therapy right now, which is us, my son, a 15-year-old, and my stepson, a 10-year-old, and my stepdaughters, 8 and 7. My first wife died 9 years ago, and I married my wife 6 years ago. We tried to make a happy and healthy blended family, not a Brady Bunch situation, but with the hope and love to flourish between all of us, at least the appropriate respect to be shown to every member of the household. My son has been resistant to be part of the family. He has had grief therapy after his mother died, and he was still in therapy when I met my wife. I communicated with him and gave him the chance to speak to her about any reservations that we was having, but he did not say anything. So we got married and blended our families. Only, he got out of his way to not spend time as a family, and is resistant to time whenever it is not just him and me. He always says no to spending time with his step-siblings. He calls himself an only child and claims that he only has one parent since his mom died. He is rude at times. Sometimes he will ignore a question from his step-siblings, or he will tell my wife that she's not his mom, and she doesn't get to ask to see his homework. She does this sometimes if she is the only adult at home, making sure that the kids have done their homework. We decided that family therapy could be beneficial, and for the first few weeks, it was okay going. He admitted that he does not love my wife or the stepchildren, and that was fine. He was open that he did not like me getting remarried, which I did suspect, but hearing him say it was a sign of communication, which I did want us to have in therapy. Well, yesterday things got out of hand. We all got the chance to speak over the weeks and be honest about our feelings and what we wanted to work on. Yesterday, the therapist suggested some things to help us come together a bit more as a family. Some homework that could give us a chance to spend time together, just having fun. My son said that he wasn't going to take part. The therapist told him that it wouldn't be some lame time where it only focused on the younger kids because he was aware that the activities being aimed at the younger siblings could be a drag. But he should try to be open to having some fun in the presence of at least all of us. My son said that we can't do it because we're not a real family, that his step-siblings are not his real siblings, and my wife is not his real mom, or his stepmom, or his family. He is very angry. My stepkids left the session upset, and my son was still angry. I spoke to him and asked him why he had to be so harsh, and he said it's true, that he doesn't care about the rest of them. I told him that he should find better ways to communicate his feelings and for his outburst, and he could say goodbye to video games for a week. My son told his maternal grandparents, and they told me that I had no right to punish him for that. They said that I shouldn't be forcing him to attend therapy either. They told me that it's time to accept that if he wants nothing to do with my wife or family, then that's his choice. Am I the jerk? All right, folks, what do you think?
Yeah, OP, you're being a jerk here. Generally, you should not be punishing children for what they say in therapy. Sounds like family therapy was not his idea. You are dragging him to it. You have asked him to open up and be honest, and then you punish him when he says the things you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Like, you know he doesn't view your wife and stepchildren as real family. It shouldn't come as a surprise that he's going to say that in therapy.
Yeah, I think that this is one of those situations where OP, all you're going to do is encourage him to lie. You're going to encourage him not to be truthful if he knows that he's going to get in trouble or punished because of things that he says in therapy. And certainly, like, there would be one thing if he was making physical threats of harm against the rest of the siblings, and then that might be something where there are additional steps that are needed, right?
Right, yeah. If there's an active threat or something like that, that goes beyond the scope of what therapy is for. But if it's just not liking your step siblings and stepmom, that's perfectly acceptable, type of therapy conversation.
And while OP does say that he had grief counseling, it sounds like he's still very upset by the death of his mother, which, I mean, who wouldn't be, right? And that's something that's probably going to stick with him forever. And you can't force him to view this relationship with his step siblings or stepmother as anything more than, people living in the same house as him, right?
Right. Well, and he was only 9 when OP remarried, so expecting his grieving son, to be able to express that I'm really not uncomfortable with this going forward is a big ask of a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I think OP really needs to reframe the goals of family therapy. It should not be about getting everyone to be happy, because you're never going to have this nice, happy family that you want. It's not going to happen. And the more you push your son into that, the more likely you are to drive him away completely.
Yeah.
So I think the therapy should be focused just around communicating as a unit, because there are going to be times when your wife is the only one home and she does need to be able to have some level of, responsibility over the kids.
Yeah.
But your goal should not be to make your son happy to play with his step sibling. That should be off the table.
Yeah. And I think that there are certain boundaries here that he is actually violating too, right? Like the homework, for instance. You can explain to him that while he doesn't view his stepmother as their mother, she is still his legal guardian, and she still has the authority to be able to do things like check his homework. So whether he wants to accept it or not, she still has a role to play in his life to some degree, and he needs to accept that. And if he doesn't accept that authority, then that's when you can start punishing him for, just being disobedient in that particular case.
Yeah.
Because really there's honestly no reason for him to be so resistant to having his homework checked. And again, like, she's a legal guardian. It would be like him telling the teachers, no, you can't check my homework, right? Because while you're at school, they're the guardians of the students, right?
Yeah, and so I'm not saying Opie doesn't have any legitimate grievances, and again, therapy could be a good place to address some of those. Although I think potentially having him and the younger kids in therapy together isn't necessarily a great idea. Like, if they are hearing things that are hurtful to them, it may be more conducive just to do therapy, OP and his son, to work out, like, what are the boundaries for our household.
Yeah, and that actually I think is a really good point and a good idea, because he might feel more comfortable just talking with OP, and OP also might not feel as inclined to, like, punish him for saying hurtful things, because if he's saying things that are truthful, then it's going to come across as more sincere, I think, in a one-on-one session like that, versus where if the rest of the siblings are around, there might be some question about whether he's saying this just to be hurtful, right?
Right, exactly.
But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got some tea right here. And Amber, she has a joke.
We're gonna skip ahead a little bit for a more spooky joke for today. What do you get if you cross an illustrated Stephen King book with a mode of transportation?
I guess you get a car named, what is the car named?
Christine?
Christine. I guess you get Christine.
The bicycle of the werewolf.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That makes sense. And I have some Mega Mint. And then also, I'll post a picture of it somewhere, probably like right here or something like that. But Amber's book, the book that Amber is part of, the anthology, has been released.
Yes, it's releasing today. So other book forms should now be on Amazon if everything goes according to how it's supposed to. So there's ebook, paperback, and I believe audiobook as well.
Yeah, so I will be trying to remember to actually post an Amazon affiliate link to that, and just remember that if you click on that link and purchase something from that link, then all qualified purchases can earn us a commission. If you want to buy it that way, you're welcome to. Also, you don't have to. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy spectacular Saturday. I hope your Saturday is going spectacularly. Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance. And please have it in the perspective of a time-traveling dinosaur.
Get my little T-Rex hands out. Back in my time, we didn't have homework. Don't steal people's homework, but don't do homework. Just eat leaves or other dinosaurs, because I'm probably a T-Rex with my hands.
There you have it, folks. Amber says you're too cool for school, but not too cool to eat leaves or other dinosaurs. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye.